All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Open Live Q&A. This is week number 149, and my name is Mr. McLogan, and I am happy to answer your questions as we go ahead and get ready for our midterms, or at least kind of the mid semester exam. So I hope you guys are doing well this evening and are ready to kind of go through on some questions. I know some people. I did a little Google poll on my channel, and I recognize that some people, like, I think still aren't having exams or semester exams, or maybe like you've already taken them. Um, and typically we always would go through our semester exam like right before usually winter break, or maybe even right after winter break. Just kind of depends on like when we started at the beginning of the year. But it's everything's kind of changed, I think, since COVID. So it was kind of a little interesting to hear where some other people have kind of, gone through. So yeah, it was definitely a little different, but I think one thing I'm going to probably do here in the next week, I think I'm going to be opening up some different live streams, at least through December, where I kind of feel like that's at least those, I think, the first 3 weeks in December, where I know a lot of students are going to be having some semester exams coming up. So that is, hopefully that will be something that some students will be benefit or need, and can definitely be helpful for them on that. Actually, yeah, I think I got to go back through in there. And yeah, Gabe, I just saw that. I didn't watch the Power Rangers a lot. I was kind of, I guess, I don't know, maybe a little bit older when I was growing up, but they were on, and I do remember watching them like in the morning before like going to school. I don't remember what grade I was in. Maybe I was like in middle school, but this might have been like when they first came out. And yeah, I saw that. I didn't read the article though, back from there, but that was kind of interesting. So, anyways, if you guys have any questions on semester exams or anything for your semester exam, do remember though, I am also taking questions that you guys can definitely go ahead and submit any math questions that you have over for me. Where are they? Oh, there's the overlays. So if you guys do have any questions, feel free to go to brianmclogan.com/Q&A, and that's the best place to submit. I have a couple math questions that I'll be able to go over tonight, and then obviously if there's anything else you guys additionally send over, then yeah, we can go ahead and try to do our best from on there. And again, I am going to probably within this next week, I'll have some additional information for you guys after coming back from Thanksgiving break, of regarding getting back for your semester exam. So if any guys are interested in that, I think I'm just going to focus on my pre-calculus one. I'll probably do some reviews for pre-calculus students. So if that is something interested in, just make sure that you maybe submit a question so you're on my email list, and yeah, you'll be getting some information on that. Well, hey, Doom. Brian, I before the A, but yeah, I'm sure it happens all the time. Don't worry. But I'm doing well. Thank you. And I'm wearing a little painting shirt from today. So that's what I was doing some work. Do you like your students? Yeah. I mean, I think for most students, I like my student, or, most students I would say I like, and even for students that give me a hard time, that sometimes it's a little bit difficult to answer that question. I think I did a good job. I think that was one of my favorite things about being a teacher, was that I really could let go of like having bad days, with students, or if a student really, really was bothering me one day, or maybe said something that, you know, maybe was like not forgivable for like that one day or something, like I could totally forget about it, let it go, and then come back to that next day, and, um, and treat them just like that never happened. And I think that's something really important, that for teachers not to hold like grudges, stuff like that. You never know what students are going through on a day-to-day basis. And not to say that I was perfect every single time, because obviously there are definitely some times that students would really get under my skin, and I might have responded to them maybe a little bit differently than I probably should have. But I think overall, I always enjoy students, and a lot of times students will think like, "Oh, you hate me or you don't like me," and I was like, and I was like, "No, I really do enjoy it." And like, we would sit down and like talk and like have a conversation or something like that. Like, I really kind of tried to always find the best in students, even if we didn't have like a great working relationship or see eye to eye on a lot of issues. There's usually always something we could kind of come together on, and I think that's really important for anybody really to really have, not just like a student teacher relationship, but there's always going to be things that you can find in common with others, even if on some very serious issues you're not finding that something to relate to them with. I decided to look at this because I saw it. What's your hair care routine? That's not funny. What I'd really like to know is how do you do better on or step up in the classroom? I feel like I don't have enough initiative in class and would like to improve. What? I mean, I think maybe you got to change things up, right? Um, it feels like you want to improve, but you're not really sure how. So I think my opinion, just reading that comment, the way that you're approaching like class or the way you're approaching getting better is not working for you, right? So maybe change things up. Like, one thing that kind of happens for me, like working out. Like I used to work out all the time. I used to love working out, right? But sometimes like when I get bored with working out or doing it, like I had to change it up. Like so I used to always go to like a workout class at this time and like it was like that. And that's when I went every single day. And then I liked it. And then I got kind of bored with it. And then I stopped going. And what I realized was like, oh, I just need to change up my time. I need to change up my routine. Like I need to approach this differently. And so I think maybe that's something you need to, kind of look at. Like, what are some things you can do differently? That's just going to take sometimes we used to do that when I was in college. We'd study at different places. Like we do the coffee shop, we do the student union, we do like our bedroom. Every single day we were trying to like always finding different places to do it because if you're staying at the same spot, you're just going to get bored with it, right? And you're just going to be like, I don't want to do this. What other things can I do to like distract myself, or what's something better I should be doing with my time? So maybe just need to like change up the way that maybe who you're studying with or who you're working with or who you're getting help from or how you're doing your work or when you're showing up to class or anything else. Like just kind of look at your routine and what are maybe some different things that you can try that might help you kind of step it up or approach things differently. Why does five round to an even digit? Um, hmm. Oh, that's a great question. Maybe above my pie grade. I'm not sure. um, how hard are math proofs in college? Asking as a curious high schooler. I think with anything. I mean, I remember when I took my first proof class, it was fairly basic, really, really basic proofs. And so usually when you're first learning how to do proofs in a college class, it's going to be, basic and stuff like that. And then obviously it can get much more difficult. But I will say that, I even had introduction to proofs before college, but then once we got to college, once I actually had a actual proofs class, it was we started basic and got a little bit more advanced, but it was more just on the focus of like learning how to write proper proofs. And then for other classes, we were writing proofs and stuff like that. Um, but I wouldn't say at least for my undergraduate, my bachelor's, like which I didn't go to get my graduate degree. So at least for my undergraduate though, but it wasn't anything I think crazy in the proofs that we were writing, right? And I think maybe after you get outside of that, then yeah, into maybe your graduate, that maybe where you start getting into some really deeper stuff. Um, obviously, someone has not watched enough of my videos about my struggles in math because yes, math was something that I definitely struggled with throughout learning it in high school and in college. But yeah, that was something I was able to overcome and get my math degree and become a teacher for 14 years. Doom, if you want to go and submit a question, go to brianmcclothing.com/Q&A. I'm not really sure what you want me to explain for exponential functions. So if you have something like more pointed, or an example that you want me to like talk about, it's a lot easier for me to go through it. If you submit that question there, rather than me just trying to guess what you need help on and, doing some explanation in that regard. Do you like the teachers? Maybe you're talking somebody. I'm not sure. Do you dislike to or in it for the money? Do you dislike? I'm not really sure. Do you like teachers and do you dislike teachers who are in it for the money? Well, kind of tired. Um, I mean, obviously, like teachers are just like your coworkers, right? So, I mean, there's gonna be people you like, people you don't like, people you connect with, people you don't connect with, people you enjoy their company, people you like are bothered by the company, right? I mean, that's just like human behavior. Um, as far as teachers that like dislike teachers who are in for the money, I mean, one, we all got to support ourselves. So I'm not sure I would, and I don't think being a teacher, while it can be very um, safe, like compared to like opening up in a restaurant or something, um, it can, kind of be like financially secure in that regard. I don't think a lot of people, become teachers just for that financial security or to make a lot of money, obviously. And so, I definitely know that there are some teachers that definitely do it. Maybe they don't need as far as much as the money, so they're just kind of like, maybe their partner is like the breadwinner, so they're just able to, um, kind of teach and go from there, or maybe for like insurance, health insurance or stuff like that. I was like, there's always different reasons I've met people that have gone into the teaching field, and I think with anything, I mean, there's been people that they've gone into the field, maybe not be because they want to be a teacher, but they kind of came in like later in life and they were like excellent, amazing teachers. And then I think in the same regard, they were like, "Yeah, why are you a teacher? Like, please get away from there." And um, not like they were doing anything bad, but like they weren't doing anything great, I think, for the profession. And that's kind of like where I kind of got scared with myself, where I wasn't really feeling that motivation to be like to keep on improving and becoming a better teacher. And um, I was really losing a lot of motivation for showing up and like making better lesson plans and making better um being a better like teacher day in day out. Like I really hated like doing the grading and sometimes doing a little bit like the extra stuff that I think most teachers or I think like a lot of times we kind of expect, that we need to do. And so yeah, that was one of those things where I was like, hey, if I'm not doing what I feel like I would expect a teacher to be doing for like my own children or like what I used to do, like it's time for me to take a break or to step away. And that, that's exactly why I decided to. Now, the main reasons why I decided, I'm like, I need to take a break. Like, I don't want to like pretend or, fake being a teacher, right? Just being there like as a body inside of a classroom. And I'm not saying that, I was obviously just doing it for the money or, or other teachers are just like that. But it's like, yeah, I mean, anybody that's just there as a teacher, just stepping in and, not there to really improve their craft or be, and to motivate their students and to help them be out, like, yeah, like get out of the profession. Like even though we have a severe shortage of teachers, like we got to do a better job of like keeping those ones that want to be a teacher and that have that gift and that can improve and stuff like, but we don't need just people that are just standby bodies, that don't want to be there and aren't going to be helpful and stuff like that. Like, so yeah, I wouldn't say I dislike the teachers, but I think that's definitely a bigger conversation we need to have about, you know, recruiting and keeping the highest quality teachers that we possibly can have inside the classroom. Yeah, I agree. Like, why? Like, get out, get away from profession, do something else, please. We don't need you. We don't want you. Um, well, you're very welcome, Convex. I'm Kermit High School. You teach in 10 minutes. Well, awesome. So happy to help you out. Hey, Araf, who has been your favorite student you have ever taught and why? Please don't say something like, I love all my students the same, or I don't have any favorite, because I know you definitely have one in mind. No, I like, no, that it's just like, you can't, like, I don't have a favorite student. And even a classroom, like that's just not how it works. And, like I know like your friends, right? If you think about it, like yourself, you're like, oh, I definitely have like a best friend or somebody I like most on the team or stuff like that. Like you got to imagine, I don't know. I think it just kind of comes into like the student teacher like relationship, like what you get from each and every one of your students, like it's, it's a different it's a different gift that each and every student like provides to you. So while you can say like, "Hey, I connect with Johnny on a personal level," like he kind of reminds me of a friend that I had in high school or something like that, like our jokes connect. I might be able to get like just as much of a gift from, let's say, Steven, who like reminds me of myself when I was a student, or of Sally, like who like is going through a lot, but she is like, you can see that she's persevering and stuff like that, like, and you're like helping her or not helping, it's like, I don't know. It, I, I think it's easy I think you got to look at the relationship. Well, you don't need to because you can't relate to it. So it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, I can say it as many times as I want to, but I don't think you're going to relate. And it's the same thing like being a parent, which I remember being like, I don't know how old you are, but like being in your position is like, how can parents not have a favorite? And it's like, it's different. Like your parent child relationship is kind of the same thing as like the teacher student relationship. Like you don't get the favoritism from like liking them like you are as a as like a student, as like how you like your friends, right? Yes, how you like your friends, you're going to have favorites, like that's how that makes sense. But the relationship is different from a parent with their children or a teacher with their children or a teacher with the children or the students, however you want to say it. Um, and yeah, it is true. Like I don't have a favorite student that I would give into like, I like this one better than all like, so far. Of course, there's like students that were very rude and, that I wouldn't like list down my favorite, but I was like, um, I wouldn't say there's like a one, that would, stands out. I think I guess maybe the only way I can give you something maybe of value is like the students that I usually, um, that I did enjoy their presence, at least I got the most away from that you could consider like the favorite is they responded, they wanted to learn and they responded to things that I taught. So that might be my motivation in class. Sometimes like a lot of what I do with these live streams or through like my teaching inside, like they appreciated, that. So, any student that really responded, they acted upon things and they improved, that those were students I would consider like my more favorite because I could relate to seeing their success, from based on my teaching or what I was doing, what I was telling them. So that's a very vague answer, what you didn't want, but that's the best I can give for you. What do you most like? I'm not sure if I've taught that actually answer this question. You've probably answered this already, but what do you like most about teaching math? I think I have probably in like a roundabout way, but I think my most what I liked about teaching math the most was for really allowing students to be able to see like that they can overcome their struggles, kind of like how I did. They can not understand something, and with through working perseverance, that they can see like they can get better at it. And I think with math, it's just so relatable to so many natural things of life, just kind of like sports are. Like you're gonna like having failures or not struggling or not understanding something and being over to overcome them. Like that's what I love the most about it. And even for students that didn't struggle a lot with math, um, to challenge them, to push them, and to see them like rise up to that challenge. Like I just that's what I really really loved about math. It's like you can help students that are really struggling, and you can push students that are like really excelling, all within the same class. And again, like you can see how that benefits them outside of life, and and yeah, it's not always like apparent to them, but you know that what you're doing is setting them up for success in life, from on there. So that's what I really really liked. I mean, obviously, I really like the math content, teaching the math and stuff like that. And sometimes it was really good for students to be able to see those connections or those light bulb moments with the math. But in reality, it was really just like overcoming struggles that I really liked the most. And that could have happened in math or like in English or anything else. But I think for most students, math was that course where they felt like they were going to have the biggest struggles, or like they needed to overcome the most there. How are your classes usually structured? Good. Wow. That's a good question. Actually, most of my classes, well, I mean, I change this from year to year, and I would honor, or I would say that for any teacher watching this, to always make sure you're always like improving, changing things up. like I would every single year I'd always be trying to like, oh, let me go and try something else. And that's the one thing I'm always like scared about with, any kind of restrictions on like education of like not allowing educators that like educational freedom, because we want teachers to be trying new things and like trying to become better at their craft, right? Because if they're just going to turn into robots, always teaching the same thing in the exact same way, it's just gonna be like fast food workers, and they're gonna be like, why am I doing this? And they're just gonna get out, and more of them are gonna leave. And I think there's such a big push to trying to, standardize the teaching of everything like that, where it's just like, you're just ruining that creative freedom that teachers have. So, typically though, like a lot of my times in classes, like I would always record my homework, and so therefore students always had access to the homework. So I wouldn't spend time going over homework or anything else. I would always start usually the class with kind of like a little introduction or like an investigation or some kind of curiosity kind of thing. I didn't really do like review problems or anything. It was like I got right into the content. I tried to like, I always try to like set it up, somehow set up what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be teaching, and with either some like basic problems or like a little activity, but something to get them curious about the concept we were about to be teaching. And then from there, depending on the concept, depending on what we're learning, is either going to be into some instruction, myself, or we do, or I'd have like um, an activity or some, or they'd be doing, a kind of guided lesson on their own, and then I would get into instruction. So that's usually typical how I do, like how most a lot of my lessons would cover, like sometimes I do like some instruction, and then a lot of times, let's say it was like a concept, I maybe would teach, a couple examples, and then I'd maybe have students try them. Maybe I'd have students go up, work them on the groups, put them on the board, and then I would review them. So there's just a lot of different ways. But I'd say like if you're going to do like typical classroom or a lot, maybe a concept where we weren't doing a lot of investigation, it would be an introduction concept. And then maybe I would do some personal instruction. I'd have students work on it in like groups, and then they would perform their work on the board. And then I'd kind of like work through it. That's kind of like um, a, a general idea. Holy crap. I got a lot of questions I got to run through. All right, let me go see. Would you allow retakes on guests? Yes, I did. I don't know. I always kind of thought about, um, you know, it, I mean, it's such, I gotta spend more time. Like, why retakes? Or should students have retakes? I'm gonna think out like I may make a longer video on that. Like, I just think I want students to be learning throughout the year. Like I used to do it early in the year, and like students would just like fail on purpose, like just so they could take the retake. And I'm like, okay, that's not what I wanted you to do. But I do think like students need that opportunity to be continuously learning throughout the year. Right. So it was kind of a balance. I'm not sure if I ever like nailed it on top of the head. Nailed it, at least in like my policy. But, I used to always like maybe like require that students did their homework. Again, like the homework was available online. Or maybe they did the test corrections first and then I do the review. Like I was always trying things to try to see what I could make students do to earn that retake. And I'm not, as I mentioned, I don't think I got everything exactly the way I wanted it, but the I'll go turn this off. But I don't know. I found that students that, did take advantage of it as far as a learning retakes, they usually did, pretty good. I was happy to see their developments throughout the year. But obviously there are still students that just took advantage of like having retakes, and, I wasn't able to figure that out exactly. But I do think students should be continuously learning and be able to improve upon their mistakes. And again, like I think learning happens here. Here's my big main point for retakes. I think learning happens for every student differently. So I don't think we should be judging every student. Like if you don't know if you don't know this concept by Friday, then like you deserve this grade. It's, I don't know. It's for me, that's just a big pill to kind of swallow in general for every student. Obviously, yeah, you can work harder, you can study harder, but like in general, like I I think students just are going to be able to absorb information at a different pace. And like I understand grades are done at the end of the year. in all the kind of realm. But still, I want to give students that opportunity to be able to make sure that they show that they understood the material, even if it's at a later date. All right, let me try to see if I can catch up here. Yeah, abstract algebra was my most difficult that I had. Well, thank you, Jay. Hey, Derek, you're kind of literally took me from Algebra 1 level. Oh, awesome. To Pre-Calc, my college, and currently awesome. Congrats to you. You're very welcome. Love for us. You got a BS in math in there. Well, that's awesome. Thank you, Peter. You are very welcome, bestie. I am actually using a new mic. I think it's a, oh God, no. It's a pod mic. But then I'm using the Wave XLR. So on there, I don't have any resources, but I have for the longest time. Oh, well, that's looks like it's all connected, but I've still used my Blue Yeti. I use that all the time too. So I do really like the Blue Yeti. The only thing I know you could actually get a stand for the Blue Yeti, but the Blue Yeti stand, like the mic stand was just a little bit weird. So that's why I decided to upgrade from on this. Let's say you're about. Well, you're very welcome. Happy to help you out. I taught high school for. There you go. I taught high school for 14 years until I stepped away last year. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's a tough one. It's like because I feel like, I think you got to understand for most teachers, right? And this was all I remember like, I don't know, when I was becoming a teacher, somebody said this to me and it like kind of hit something I never thought about. Like most teachers were good at school, right? So it's like, most people don't become a teacher. They're like, oh, I had a horrible experience in high school. Like, let me become a teacher. Like, no, like most people that are teachers, they enjoyed teaching, like, and they obviously want to become a teacher, but they did well in school, right? Obviously, you have to earn a degree for most people, at least nowadays, like have a degree that are teachers, but you had to like enjoy the whole experience and stuff like that. And so obviously, I think there's that relatability approach where most math teachers obviously are good at math, right? They liked math, right? They were like math nerds or whatever you want to say. So like they're going to relate better and easier to students that are strong and good at math. And not to say that they hate students that struggle with math or anything else, but they might respond or react to them differently where maybe those students kind of feel that way. And again, I'm not like discounting what you're saying. Like I'm sure there's probably some teachers that, yeah, maybe outright like discredit anybody that struggles with math, right? They have that maybe kind of like senior or superior, kind of like effect where they just feel like they're better because they're better at math than so they're better better at life than you. And that's real. Like that happens all the time. And so yeah, I don't think it's right. Because I think and I think as far as though it's understandable, like as a human condition. And also I think it's something that just as teachers, we just got to be aware of, right? Because, and it's also hard though, too. Like when you're really, really good at something and then you have to go back, like I was talking to somebody about oh, could you help my daughter like in fourth grade math? I'm like, I have no idea how to teach fourth grade math. And you're like, oh, well, you have like a math degree. I'm like, yeah, but like teaching, it's not like I wouldn't know how like a lot of the material, but it's like the way that the teacher or the way that like how the process goes from, third grade to fourth grade to fifth grade. Like, I think it's just like a different approach of like building that number set. Like, I'm very comfortable in like teaching high school mathematics, but like going below that or going above that, like that would be a very difficult thing, I think, for me as a teacher, right? I'd have to definitely, I think, learn some things to be successful in that regard. So, and even like once I was teaching like calculus, like if somebody's like, oh, I'm not understanding how to solve like linear equations, like I would have to put myself into like an algebra 1 classroom to kind of have that empathy, with the students of like where they're not understanding that, because sometimes you take for granted, obviously, like when you're in a calculus class, always around calculus students. So, I I think it's something that, yes, teachers got to be aware of, and not all teachers are aware of that. They just want to put themselves around people that are kind of like them. And if they're good at math, they want to be around those strong math students, which I think is unfair. And I think like that was one of the things that always separated me a little bit, from there because I'm not great at math. I'm not a math like wizard or anything like that. Like I struggle with math, but I worked really hard, earned my degree. And I feel like that was always something I could do to like relate to students like you guys on the stream was like, you know, that math was a struggle for me and I had to like overcome it, and that's always something that I always kind of like really hold dear is like I can relate more to the people that are like that than students that are like math comes easy to me. I can get an A without opening the book or showing up to class. Like I can't relate to that student. I know that student from being a teacher in the classroom, and not like any good or bad, but it's like I can't. I wouldn't say like I weren't favorable either way, but I was like I always had to challenge those students in different ways. Of like, all right, you got this good at math, like you're good at the content, but it's like, what are some other ways we can also strengthen it or make you more around? Because a lot of times what would happen with a really strong math student is once they got into something where they would struggle, they didn't know how to react to it because they've always were able to get through math without having, struggles. So then once they did struggle, it was kind of like this big event and like, holy crap, like how do I adjust from this? So but yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that, from there. Definitely teaching online. Teaching online was horrible. I mean, obviously, I don't really consider like teaching in YouTube videos online, but yeah, teaching when I had like my own class and I was teaching online, it was really tough. I think so. I think it's just a personal preference, like note cards, highlighting. Like, I don't know. I don't think I mean, I'm sure there's some science, that's saying one way or the other, but in my opinion, I think it's just really personal opinion. Um, Hey, Ricardo. Well, I'm happy you were able to show it on. Question: how hard is physics? I don't know. I don't like physics, so I took it in college. I took it in high school and in college. Actually, had to drop it in college because I was taking Calc 2 at the moment, and it was just like too much for me. So, therefore, I just stayed with math. Well, hey, Phantom, good to have you on. Jacob. Jacob, since I am a little low on my math questions, I will add that to you, even though most students are supposed to add that to the open live Q&A, but I guess let's see if I have this. 2, so 35x squared minus a 15x. Okay, so we will factor that. All right, Peter, I did a analytic report on why students struggle in math. The 3 area I went into were student-teacher connections, yeah, the ethnic gap, and genetics. Interesting. I'd like to kind of hear more on what you're able to find, like more on that. How can I study math concepts instead of studying just to memorize? Well, unfortunately, that comes a lot with how what you're studying, like, and how the math is presented and how, presented to you and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I think with a lot of the content that we're still like kind of teaching math, there's not everything is just going to be like, oh, like this more like investigational, approach and not like some memorizing like a lot of content or, memorizing a lot of content or, memorizing a lot of like facts that you can go ahead and apply. I think that's just a lot with the way that we're still approaching things, as far as like teaching, math. So I don't really think there's like, at least coming off the top of my head that you're able to, like my teacher taught me how to do this concept this way. And here's the things I need to know. All right, let me go and like completely relearn it a different way that's easier for me to understand. Like that's kind of hard, right? Now, if your teacher would have taught it to you maybe in a different way, that might be a little bit different story. So, and again, like different math concepts and different topics are going to differ the way that, they can be kind of approached as a concept method to understand as a whole, or like relatable and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, I think a lot of the stuff that we still teach is very heavy on like, we want you to know this and to be able to do this, right? It's like, know this and do this. Um, and without having a lot of the connections of why. So, and, and again, like, I don't know if I can like tell you like, oh, just go and search out the why for like everything. Cause like sometimes that is a little bit, not worth your time and like a little bit more confusing or over confusing of the concept that, I think is going to make things worse, for you. So I think it's really a broader issue that we have in mathematics as far as studying, teaching math concepts, where it can, make sense for students of what we're learning, why we're learning, rather than just like this, oh, let's just, um, memorizing some of the stuff to understand. And like, I never made my students memorize formulas or anything like that. Like we would always practice whatever I needed them to like know how to do. We were always practicing it over and over again. So therefore they could apply it. But again, like you have very like vague statements. So I'm not, I guess we probably talk a little bit deeper on maybe something in particular from on there, but I can just say in general, yes, I think a lot of the way that we teach things are not always best conducive for students actually learning the information. I think just because it's from proofs different than like other, math algorithms, there's multiple different ways to approach a problem and to get the, same answer or to write a proof, right? There's no like one right answer. And so that's tough, difficult for students when they are so trained of like, do it this way, do it this way, do it this way. And then we kind of give them a proof and it's like, figure it out. Here's the things you need to do. You do it the way you want to do it. Or you can do it, and like, but I'm going to grade you on that, and sometimes you'll be right. Sometimes you'll be wrong. So, I think it's a struggle. It's tough, when we get so used to being told, always being shown how to do something. And then we are given some problems where it's just like, pick the best way to approach this. And we have to think through the problem on our own. It's difficult. It takes time. That's why there's whole proofs class. I was talking about this earlier, like in college, like they have to go through, like it takes time to learn how to write good quality proofs. So don't be hard on yourself if you feel like it's really tough or, it's taking you a long time. It's definitely something that, takes a long time for a lot of people. Yeah, I think that's just the way that we've taught in society. Like, but yeah, calculus is like I don't know, base camp number one on the road on Mount Everest, right? I mean, it's just the very basics of that. There's so much. The more math you learn, the more you learn the more you learn you don't know, right? So it's crazy. Uh, you're happy to help you out, Erica. How do you feel about students comparing themselves to other students who understand math better than they do? Yeah, I mean, it's natural. Like it's easy to say, don't do that. But of course, like that's just the natural thing we are going to do, But I mean, I mentioned this like a lot of times in a lot of my videos, like um, you know, everybody's gonna have different experiences and we all learn math at different you know, speeds and paces. So um you know, it's you have your whole life to learn math. So it doesn't, and it goes also like being successful in math does not mean you're going to be successful in life. Right? Being successful in math does not mean you're going to earn more money than the person next to you. So learning math is not the holy grail of everything. Like, yes, we need high quality engineers. Yes, we need, people that are really good at math. Right. But I think that we all always so often hold math as like this higher pinnacle of like, if you're good at math, then you're like that, you're gonna never have any issues or any problems in life or something like that. And it's just like, no, like, why do that to people that are like strong math students, right? And why do that to people that struggle with math? Like, it's just like some people might be better, some people might be able to absorb information easier in math. Some people are going to be able to, have some natural talents, or are going to become easier for them to, be coordinated in sports, or, or be more creative and, more, be able to relate and talk to people and be, do sales and stuff like it. There's obviously some parts where students are going to have some different experiences, and they're going to have some natural effects where they're going to, excel at an easier rate than other students. But again, like that doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter. Like do the best you can possibly do, and then find, obviously find your, best characteristics, and go with it. Okay. Um, Alexander, could you help answering this question? X X root 6 over 3 is on the unit circle. Find the X coordinate. If you can go ahead and send that to brianmcgulligan.com/Q&A, I'll be more than happy to go ahead and take a look at. Well, you're very helpful, Adrian. Happy we'll help you out. Thanks for answering my question. I got one more. All right. And it's about solving a system of linear equations. Can you solve an equation and 3 equations, no matter which equation you choose, 2 to get the 3 variables? Or do you have to choose certain ones? That's a good question. Ricardo, to be honest with you, it's been a while since I did 3 system equations. But my guess would be, depends on the system, that, yeah, there might be only 2 equations that like two equations that you'd have to start from, right? Because if you started with you know, any other 2 equations, it might not provide the facts that you need. So, um, my intuition would be that there could be like you have to start a certain way from there based on what system you're given. Well, I mean, because that's how we use, um, the. It's not probably gonna be okay. It's probably not gonna be the best answer. For everybody, it's like, higher level math is, dealing with higher level problems, right? More abstract concepts. So the, you know, so yeah, we're going to be using more variables to teach and understand more complex and abstract processes, right? Whereas, like, I mean, numbers is like, you got to think of numbers like, having something like finite, like, tangible, right? Like, and, you know, obviously you can do like, some application stuff like that, but like when you're going into more of a pure math, you're getting a little bit less away from like the application based stuff. And you're kind of getting more into that, concepts and abstracts and like understanding of the stuff. So yeah, we're going to be using variables and, to represent things that might not be, it's like that might not be we might not be able to represent with just numbers. Cause yeah, it can be pretty confusing stuff. Well, awesome, Mel. Sorry to help you out. And um Fatava Fatafa videos. I learned so much from them. What are your best tips for having clean work? I'm not sure what you mean for having clean work, but I would say, you know, um, maybe use more than one sheet of paper. Like I do it all the time. I mean, I think, the, a lot of times, like I'll use sheet of paper, I'll like scribble something, and then I rewrite things. Like I know it takes way more time, but like for me to have clean work, that was what I need to do. I need to do it sloppy. That's in my brain. And then I'd rewrite everything nice and clean. All right, let me go and see if there's any other questions that I had. Can you go over the word problem? No, actually, I think I did say I was going to do that word problem. Dang. All right, let's see what other questions I got. How to find the height. All right, I guess I'll go over this question. Let me go and select these. I think we can be able to do that. Come on. Yes, all the time. That's basically the story of my life. Well, actually, Sanjay, happy to help you out. Hey, Ethan, good to have you on. We had a speaker in my college talk to his group. I'm in, and he said, practicing so you master the material, and then the exam is just trivial exercise. I really like that. Yeah, I totally agree. That's one thing that I don't really say it in that way, but like I've said it multiple times, and it's kind of like to the exact same point of that, where a lot of students, my main advice for a lot of students are like, oh, like I studied for the exam, like, and I always like I don't do as well on the exam. It's like why is that? Or what else? I'm like, you didn't study hard enough. Like you got to practice more work ahead of that exam. Like just don't feel like you know the material and then move on from there. Like you have to practice, 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 and you got to over practice. And that's kind of, I think, exactly exactly what that, speaker said, like, and the way that I say it is like, you have to over practice, because if you over practice, you do so many math problems, you're all ready. Yeah. By the time you get to that test, it's like, come give it to me. Like, what's the best you got? Because I am ready for you. That's a good question. I mean, I would just say mostly with word problems. I think you're going to deal with a lot more word problems like in Algebra 1. I think just anything dealing with word problems like, linear equation or systems of equations or linear equations or inequalities. I think I always just found that was where students like struggled the most. I think maybe as far as math type, maybe like quadratics and factoring, kind of getting to that factoring quadratic trinomials. A lot of students really just struggle with that kind of stuff. But I would say word problems and factoring are going to be your two steps there. All right. Expand the logarithms completely. Okay. Let's see. All right. Let me go and see. Got this one. All right. I'm just pulling all these questions, guys. Again, these are being submitted at bramclug.com/Q&A. I did not have time to get through these ahead. And actually, a lot of students got to these to me later. So, all right, I'm not going to post this one. So this one says, just a question. What do you do when you feel like you aren't motivated more for math class? I'm almost at my last 4 weeks of algebra. Been doing really good so far, but now I'm avoiding doing anything for it. Is there any tips on how to get out of this hole? My final is soon. I mean, I think at this point, you got to like realize, like, if you don't get a good grade on your final in your class, like, what is that going to mean for you? Because I think you got to put some pressure on yourself, something to like, and sometimes it's like giving yourself like a goal, or like a treat, like, hey, if you do well, or you can do this, like, I don't know, I'll spend some money or I'll buy myself something or anything like that. Like maybe you look at an external, motivation. If you don't have the internal going on, you got to find some motivation somewhere. And I don't want that exterior motivation to come from a negative point where you start doing bad and that's why you have to get motivated. Right. And that's where a lot of students, kind of wait for that motivation to come from, is like once they start to struggle or once something negative happens. So we don't want that to happen to you. So, maybe kind of look for some external ways of like, hey, why don't you, really push for yourself to kind of go for, getting a good grade and like, treat yourself. But also I think like, look at like, look at the purpose of like you doing well and like, um, maybe kind of looking ahead and like into your future. I did talk about this, like, thoughts of math, like why we want to be successful, like, and what does this mean, for you, and stuff like that. And sometimes we just got to like bite the bullet and just get things done. It's like, just get over with it. And then you're done with this class. Maybe then you don't have to worry about your teacher or the course or the curriculum, but yeah, sometimes it can be difficult. So I'd either look for external motivation or kind of look into your future. Like, why do you want to get a good grade in this class? Why do you need to get a good grade in this class? How is this going to help you? What do you want to do in your life and stuff like that? And just try to like, kind of internally motivate yourself in that regard, even if it's not so much about the specific class, but like what's beyond this class, what's important for you above that, and just tie your math class into that. What are my best tips for so clean work? Okay, so you posted twice. Thank you. Starting the other point if it's on the unit circle. Well, awesome, Justin. Happy to help you out. Oh yeah, okay. The point X is on the unit circle. Find the X coordinate if P lies in quadrant 2. Okay, I guess I can figure. I can do this problem. Hmm. There you go. No, not that. Sorry. I'm trying to answer one last question. I'm getting over this, and then I will. All right, then we'll get into the math questions. Actually, let me go and switch over. Waha. There you go. All right, let's see what we got here. All right. No, the stream doesn't end at 11. Oh my God. Be up. I have gone a couple times 2 hours, but I don't want to go 2 hours. So I'm going to try to get these math questions over with as soon as I can. Yeah, I do. I mean, I don't know. It's like bittersweet, I guess. Like there's a lot of times like I wish I was back in the classroom. Like I miss that. And there's a lot of times I'm like, oh my God, there's no way I could ever go back into the classroom, So it's like, it's that love-hate relationship. I love the things that I enjoyed about being a teacher, and I don't miss the things I hated about being a teacher, you know? But I have been going back to the classroom, like being a sub, and that's kind of helped out. I do kind of like that, kind of staying fresh in that regard. But yeah, it's oh, you're still yawning thing. But yeah, that's the whole year-long process, or a lot of like I think the not so much politics, but like all the things that I think we're pushing on teachers is just um I a lot of it just means that like I can't see, or a lot of the flexibility, also that I have now. I'm like, I can't see myself going back at least anytime soon. All right. If you guys have any more math questions, then please go ahead and submit them at brianmclogan.com/Q&A. Let me go and put it back in there. So if you're doing math questions, don't put them in the chat because I'm not going to get any math questions that are in the chat. But if you do have a question, then you can go to brianmclogan.com/Q&A. All right. Let me go and get into. Oh, Taff. My name is Fat Tafta. Sorry, Fat Tafta. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, there's any textbook, or even just look online, you'll give some basic concepts. It's been a while since I taught Algebra 1, so I don't want to like mistake on there. But Ben, yeah, go and submit your question and online, and then we can go and take a look at that. All right, let me go and get into some of these word problems. I think my calculator is good. Yeah, it's a little low, but we'll work with that. All right, so this person says, so Kirsten places her Sabre telescope on top of a tripod 5 feet above the ground. She measures an 8-degree elevation, all right, from the horizontal to the top of the tree, which is 120 feet away. How tall is the tree? So basically what we're going to do is like find this and then add 5 to it. Okay, so we need to know what h is. So basically what we do is we have a triangle. We know this is 8 degrees. We have h, and then this is 120, right? So when we have the opposite and the adjacent, right, of a 9-degree angle, we're going to want to use tangent. So I can say the tangent of 8 degrees is equal to h over 120. So h multiply 120 on both sides. I don't know why I put a degree there. It's not a degree. So h is equal to 120 tangent of 8 degrees. Now, make sure when you type this in your calculator that you have it in degrees. So tangent of 8 degrees. Let me make sure my mode is good. Yep, degree mode. All right, so 10 degrees times 120. So h is going to equal a 16.864. And then what I'll do is I'll just going to add 5 feet. Okay, and therefore I can say that the height of the tree, so I could say the height of the tree is going to be 21.864 feet, because I think everything was in feet, right? Yeah, there you go. So there would be my answer. Sorry for the poor penmanship. All right. Question number 2 says 35x squared minus 15x. I think the student was asking, like, how would I factor this? First thing I was going to do is factor out the GCF, the greatest common factor that factors out both of those. Here I can see that I can factor out a 5x. By factoring a 5x, I'm going to be left with a 7x minus a 3. There's really nothing else I can factor there. So I always look for the GCF to be able to apply first. You got to know what you have in the triangle. So, for law of sines, you're going to have a angle, and you're going to want a, what is it? Angle, side angle, or you got to think about those. You're going to have a angle, side angle, or because law of cosines is going to be side angle, side, or side, side, side. I think those would be the true, if I can remember correctly. But yeah, if you go and look at textbook or anything else, like they'll tell you like the two popular that you can have for both of those. And again, if I was spend time, you can submit it your question, then I'll go over it more in depth. But I just saw your comment and I felt like I could respond to it. So as an isosceles triangle has two 5.5 centimeter sides and two 32-degree angles. All right, so let's draw that. All right, so we have 5.5, 5.5, and then two 30-degree angles. So now it says calculate the area. Well, to calculate the area, guys, we need to figure out what the height is, okay? Now, the cool thing is, if I have this height, and let's call this maybe like the width or something like that, I can figure out what both those are going to be. So I can say that let's say opposite over hypotenuse. So I could say the sine of 32 degrees is equal to h over 5.5. So multiply 5.5 on both sides. So I'd say 5.5 times the sine of 32. And h is going to be a 2.915. I'm actually going to use that whole answer. And then if I want to find w, I could say that's going to be the adjacent over hypotenuse. So I could say the cosine of 32 degrees is equal to a w over 5.5. So I can say w is equal to a 5.5 times the cosine of 32. And let's call it 4.664. Okay. Now, again, you can double that, right? So I could say my area is going to equal a 2w times 1/2 of the h, right? Because basically we have 2 w's is going to give you the base, and then times 1/2 h. So I'll do that times 2 times 0.5. So times, so I really just need you just really need w times h, actually. So and when I do that, I get an area of 13.594. And again, this is just going to be truncated from that regard. Okay, so that's what I'm typing in from on there. And again, really, that's area is equal to a w times h, actually, once it gets simplified. Question number 2. So this is going to be an expansion, okay? So a couple things we notice here is here I have the product, so I can expand those, right? I can rewrite this as log base 4 of 4 times the log of base 4 of a square root of a 3x cubed. Now, obviously, log base 4 of 4 is just going to be 1, right? So 1 times that is just going to be 1, right? So now I have this. Now in here, I can rewrite this So this can be 1 times a logarithm of 3x cubed raised to the 1/2 power. Now, if I'm going to expand this, I can bring that out to the front, and then, sorry, that's base 4, and then recognize here that actually I can do the product rule again in this regard, right? So therefore I can have this as a 1/2 log base 4 of 3 times log base 4 of, let's see, x cubed. Wait a minute. Sorry about that. What am I doing? I'm completely forgetting this. When you have the product, you add them. So sorry about that. That's a plus. I don't know what I was doing. That's a plus. Going crazy here. Sorry about that. It's a 1 plus that. Okay. Now, so that's a plus. And then here in this case, I can bring that over to the front. So therefore I have a final answer of 1 plus a 1/2 log base 4, which I can't really do anything of 4 of 3. And then here I can bring the 3 in front. So plus a 3 log base 4 of x. There we go. Hopefully I didn't make a more mistake in that. Yes, thank you so much, Justin. I had a little mental fart. All right, so this one, the point P. Okay, so we have the unit circle. Now, what's the cool thing about that we know about the unit circle? Now, this one says it's in the quadrant 2, so that's important here. Come on. Because what do we know about something that's in quadrant 2, right? Here's x, y in quadrant 1. But if we're going to go in quadrant 2, this has to be in negative x. So whatever our answer is, it's going to be negative, okay? Now, the next thing we need to understand, it says it's on the unit circle. So what's important about something being on the unit circle? Well, the distance from the origin to this point here is going to be 1, right? Always. So we have this point up here, x squared is 6/3, right? And we know that it's going to be negative, right? So it's going to be a negative x, comma, square root of 6 divided by 3. Okay? Now, what's important here is if we draw a kind of a right triangle or draw a vertical line down here, then we know that's negative x, right? That is going to be square root of 6/3. Well, the hypotenuse now is going to be a 1. So what's important about this is now we can write the Pythagorean theorem. I can say negative x squared plus square root of 6/3 squared is equal to a 1 squared, right? Pythagorean theorem. Now we just need to solve for x. Well, negative x squared is going to be a x squared. Plus this is going to be a 6/9. And then is equal to a 1. Now this we can reduce here to a 2/3. So x squared is equal to what? A root divided by 3 on top of it. Yeah, 2/3. Oh, what am I doing? Plus. I'm there. Plus a 2/3 equals 1. So subtract a 2/3. Subtract a 2/3. We get x squared is equal to a 1/3. Now, when you take the square root, right? And you could say, oh, we're going to do plus or minus. But no, we're not doing plus or minus. We're just going to do the negative version. So x is equal to the square root of 1/3, which is equal to the square root of 1 over the square root of 3, which is equal to 1 over the square root of 3, which you could rationalize the denominator. And that's going to give you a square root of 3 over 3. But again, remember, we're only looking for the negative version, right? We're only dealing with the negative version. So that is going to be my final answer. So it'd be negative square root of 3 over a 3. So, yep, there you go. Hopefully that was helpful. Otherwise, guys, I got to go. Again, any other questions, guys, take them to brianmclogan.com/Q&A. brianmclogan.com/Q&A. Hope you guys have a great week. For those of you celebrating Thanksgiving, hopefully they have a great Thanksgiving. And I will see you guys again next week, Sunday night at 9 p.m. Cheers. There we go.